you're doing your starter tea for your base kombucha, for the little microbes to eat. So you're gonna get a big jar and a hot pad of some sort. And then I just use a really big tea ball, and I have my organic Rooibos here. Yeah, Mama's making tea. And I'm boiling a whole pot of water right now on the stove. And I'm going to add probably about 2 tablespoons. I just fill up half of this to the best of my abilities and then close it to the best of my abilities. Some of the Rooibos particles will get in the tea, and that's not bad because we'll strain them out later. So I just do my best to close it up. And before I put that in, I'm actually gonna put 2 cups of raw organic sugar in my jar. And that is what the kombucha will eat. And it's much easier to do this. You're probably like, Presley, why are you putting it in now? Can't you put it in later? Yeah, but if you pour boiling water over it, it dissolves the sugar so much faster. You're just making a really concentrated version of the tea, and you'll water it down with the starter tea later. So that's 2 cups of raw organic sugar. You don't have to do raw organic sugar, but that's what's probably the safest for your SCOBY. So you don't want to hurt it. I know, Mama's almost done. And then I put the tea in here, and I just let this sit on my counter until the the water's done boiling. And then we'll go from there. So now my water's boiling. I'll turn off the heat. And I'm going to take my jar. I'm gonna pour my hot water into the jar, kind of not like all at once, just a little bit slowly, because if your jar isn't like super high quality, it might crack due to the temperature. So, I'm just gonna fill it to the brim here, or the top, I guess. And then I am going to take a spoon. You don't have to worry about it being like sanitized or anything because it's boiling water, you're gonna be okay. But any other time that you're mixing your kombucha or whatever, you're gonna wanna use something sterilized and not something with like tons of nooks and crannies for bacteria and stuff. So the last thing you want is mold to grow in your kombucha. My favorite thing to do is like I'll hand wash thoroughly totally rubber covered spatula. So you're just gonna wanna mix this until your sugar is dissolved. And then you'll just let it sit on your counter until it comes to room temperature. So usually that takes anywhere from 5 hours to overnight. It's the easiest if you just let it sit overnight. But usually if I start it in the morning, it'll be done by the time I go to bed. And I'll just pour it back into my starter kombucha, as you'll see in a minute, as you're watching a video. It'll be a couple hours for me, so. But yeah, just gonna stir it until that sugar is dissolved, and I just let my Rooibos sit in there. I can see a ton of Rooibos particles in there, but I'm not gonna worry about that because I'm gonna strain them out later. I used to take my Rooibos ball out after like 10 minutes or so, but honestly the flavor of the tea isn't super affected. I thought that it would become bitter, but it doesn't. So if you're making it with green tea though, that's different. I'll just do a finger tight like this. Don't have to make it super tight, or you want it covered though because you don't want any dust particles to get in there. So you don't have to screw anything on. It's the evening time and I've got my kombucha starter tea with my SCOBY. I've got my little dish that I used to put the cultured SCOBY, the little thing that grows on top to put in there. It's clean, important. And then I've got my cooled off tea with the sugar in it. And then I've got my strainer. So make sure the strainer is clean, and I'm gonna clean this just to double check real fast. It's part of the process. Show you that I am clean. Okay, I'll wash my hands. I'm not gonna dry them. I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna take off my fabric lid, and I'm just gonna take out a cultured SCOBY. Mine is pretty thin. This is the thickest it's ever been though. Some people have really, really thick SCOBYs, but I've just been building this one up and reusing it, so people don't do that. They just regrow one every single time. I'm gonna unscrew this, break the seal here. I don't have 2 people, so I'm just gonna use my tools here, what I got, and I'm gonna lift up the jar. I'm gonna pour it in. So I just pour it into the starter tea. So I don't even take the starter tea out. I just leave it in there. I don't wash this or anything. You do want to do it maybe every 6 months or so, but anyways. And then I'll top it off with some water. I have to fill up my jug real fast, so I'll go do that, and then I'll show you how to end the process. Just topped my jar off with water, and then I'm going to take my SCOBY, the cultured SCOBY, the layer that sits on top. I'm gonna ever so gently place it. I just want it to float, so I'm gonna try to go like there, like that. Cool. And then I put this back on. It doesn't have to float. But if it does float, it'll just keep building on itself. Sometimes they sink to the bottom, and that's okay, but it'll just grow a new SCOBY on top. Just a thin layer of SCOBY anyways. And then I'm gonna put her back on my shelf, and I'm gonna wait for her to get all tasty again. So, right now it's been taking anywhere from 4 days to a week, and it's winter time, so it's about 70 degrees, or so my thermostat says. Sometimes I say thermostat because it's an inside joke, but we'll ignore that. Anyways, but probably in the summertime it will be a lot faster, but green tea based kombucha definitely goes faster because there's more tannins in the tea, the green tea, but because this is Rooibos based, it'll take a little bit longer. So anyways, I'm gonna let her sit, and that's how you do the start tea for the first experiment. Flavoring your kombucha once it has done its little thing. So I am going to show you the different things you can put your second fermentation in. So, yep, we're gonna show them the bottles. This bottle with this lid, perfect. That works. I've tried flip top lids. I do like these. They're definitely more aesthetic, but they're more likely to explode if you let them sit out for too long. I have an old kombucha bottle, and then I do bulk batches, so I just reuse my big kombucha bottles. Anyways, So I'm gonna show you a couple different ways you can flavor them. Rooibos Kombucha tastes fantastic on its own. It does not need flavoring, but I like to get creative, and this is my hobby, so I like to play around with some flavors. My favorite flavor that I've made so far is actually elderberry hibiscus. Super yummy. I also really like rose hips with lavender leaves. That's also super yummy. Orange is good, grape is good, etc. So, pear and strawberry is also really good with fresh pears and fresh strawberries. So, I'll move my kid out of the way real fast. You're okay, Reese. You wanna play with this spoon? Here you go. Yep, you can play with that spoon. So, in my big kombucha bottles, I'm gonna take my dried elderberries and my dried hibiscus, and I'm going to just put some into my bottles here. I usually just do it by hand because I'm gross or whatever. But I probably maybe do like a tablespoon of elderberries and then like half a tablespoon of hibiscus. I've learned that dried flavorings, I guess you can call it, actually have a stronger flavor than fresh do. But I guess that depends on what you're using. I have not ever used fresh hibiscus or fresh elderberry, but I'm sure it would be yummy. But the dried elderberry packs a punch, so it's very yummy. I probably could even do less than a full tablespoon, but I usually, in my big bulk batches, I usually get 2 big bottles and maybe a little one out of it. If I'm flavoring with juice concentrate, I'll probably get 2 3/4 of big bottles. So if you're curious. My dishwasher is going on in the background. So if you hear that, this is just the reality of not being a YouTuber. So there you go. It's more informative than anything. All right, I'm gonna do my hibiscus. I'm not an exact person because it doesn't really matter. I'm not selling this by any means. No one is expecting each bottle to taste exactly the same. Not that there's really much of a difference, to be honest. So that's what I do. And then I'm gonna set these aside. Now I'm gonna show you how to do a juice concentrate. If you're doing a big bulk batch like I usually do, I'll pour my juice concentrate. I'll do a full one of these into a pitcher, put some warm water in there, maybe like 3/4 of the pitcher, so like that much. I don't know, I'm not great at exact measurements, but and then I'll put a cup of sugar in there as well, if I want to. I don't have to, but the more sugar you put in it, there's a ratio. If you put sugar in it, it'll actually carbonate faster, and it'll just be a sweeter drink in general. So, but I'm gonna make a little flavor request for my sister-in-law. This is your milk. I'll get you some juice later, okay? Can you wait, please? So I'll just take a little bit of this, since I'm just doing a single bottle. Again, it's not gonna be exact, but it'll just show you, if you do want to do small bottles, what it looks like. Okay, I'll do one more. This is a tiny little piece, and then I'll do this one. I'm only gonna use about that much. That's really all it needs. And then I'll pop a few elderberries in there. Hey, Reese, I need you to be patient just for 2 more seconds, okay? I'm gonna put a couple elderberries in there. And I'm also gonna put apple hibiscus per her flavor request. So, like so. And then I just pour my finished first ferment of kombucha, Rooibos based kombucha, over my drinks, and I'll show you. So forgot to mention that when you're doing dried things or fruit, like say you're doing like a raw fruit that doesn't have very much sugar content in it, I literally do like a tablespoon or less of sugar just to make the fermentation process go a little bit faster and to get more carbonation. So that's really it. That's all I do. That's it. Just wanted to say. So now I'm going to fill up my jars with the kombucha that has done its second ferment. I keep mine up here. This is my little kombucha station. Usually I will, when I taste it throughout its fermentation process, usually I wait like anywhere from 3 to like a week, just to like see my flavor profile and what's going on. So I scoot it to the edge here. I'll fill it up like that much and I'll just taste it. It's pretty bubbly. It's got, it's sweet, but it's not like when I first make it. It's not like sugar. It's just like a good balance between a little bit vinegary and a little bit sweet. And I've noticed that when I've made my first couple of batches, when it was ready, it actually wasn't quite fizzy yet. But now that I've made it, my starter tea is a lot stronger now and more developed in itself, I guess I could say. It's actually kind of bubbly, so which is good. So I got my flavorings in my jars. I'm gonna fill up my little one first, and I literally just do this. So I'm gonna put in there. I'm gonna close my lid as tight as I can on this. I'm gonna shake it up so that I can get all that juice concentrate dissolved. And then I'm gonna let this sit in here for probably anywhere from, again, 3 days to a week or longer. I'm going to pop it probably, just because it's winter time right now, probably in a week or maybe 4 days to see how the carbonation's doing. If it's pretty carbonated, I'm going to, or like where I want it to be, I'm gonna pop it in the fridge. The reason why you wanna do this is because the fridge cools the carbonation a little bit, and so it doesn't explode or like fizz out of the bottle. Say you let it out for too long or whatever, or let it sit out in room temperature for too long, it'll just fizz and get everywhere. The fridge is really good at keeping the carbonation in the liquid versus letting it all run out the top. So, little tidbit of information there for you. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and let this fill up my big bottles. I don't fill it to the top of these just because I like there to be a little bit of space for those bubbles. If it does run up, I can stop it. Also too, with the amount that this makes, I can usually get about 2, but you also want to remember that you don't want to use the whole bottle of your kombucha here. You want at least, I usually cap it off if it's like barely touching this rim because I don't want it to sit in this. That amount of starter tea, usually I can get the next batch going pretty good. So then I'm just gonna go like this to help dissolve some of that sugar that I put in there. Like this. And even after a day, you'll be surprised how significantly darker this color will be because of the elderberries. But, so I'm just gonna let that sit in there as well. gonna do my next one. I don't have the best posture, so don't judge me. Especially when I'm doing this, because it's kind of hard to hold the bottle up. And that's it. So that's how I get my second batch going. I used to just do this in a jar. I used to like pour it out, take the SCOBY out and all the stuff and sanitize it, and that was really necessary. It's really nice to just use this and just keep using it. I don't even really wash it because I don't have to. So anyways, so that's about enough starter tea for me. I'll show you here. To get started, there's my cultured SCOBY sitting on top there. If it starts to get fuzzy, that's mold. It looks pretty weird. It's like a little creature. So, but yeah. Anyway, you might want to check that every once in a while if you're not sure. The only time I've noticed that mold develops, and that's only happened to me once when I used to make kombucha, was when I literally let it sit for like a month and I forgot about it. So, yeah. But if you're on top of it, you probably won't get any mold. And again, if you're pretty clean, you won't get any mold. So, and if you do get mold, you have to scrap everything that you have and start from scratch, because it just, yeah, you don't want to culture mold kombucha, so you'll get really sick. So yeah, that's about as much as I'll add, and then when I add my starter tea, I'll show that to you. But yeah, I just add it straight into the jar. I take the SCOBY out because I don't want it to like float around or sink to the bottom. But I'll show you that. Anyways, so that's all I do for them. And I just let that sit for a couple of days.